like to extend our condolences to Mother Maduri Pratt, who passed away last week, suddenly, and unexpectedly. So it's, of course, when Krishna wants to take you, then no one can stop him. And we also wanted to thank Her Grace Vasanti Mataji for her nice introduction of Kirtan. And of course, we'd like to thank all of you for coming today. So, we're actually a family. We're actually a family, a spiritual family. So, we need to understand one another, need to be concerned about the situations that we're all engaged with or challenged by, and we should be willing to offer whatever assistance is we're able to offer to help others make spiritual progress. That's the whole idea. Krishna explains in the second chapter, Kutastva Kashmalamidam Visame Samupastitam Anarya Justam Asvargyam Akirtikaram Arjuna. He tells them, where do these impurities come from? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the progressive values of life. So Anarya Justam, we may have heard Arya. Unfortunately, Mr. Adolf Hitler made that a popular word, but he had a completely misunderstood meaning of the word for the German people. But Arya means a civilization that's based on spiritual progress. All the civilizations in the world at present are built on material progress. But Aryan civilization means, and so Krishna said, it does not lead to higher planets, but it leads to infamy. Infamy, that's another famous Second World War or saying by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, that the day after Pearl Harbor, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, is the day that will live in infamy. Infamy. Infamous. So, the Vedic culture is considered to be a culture that's based on spiritual progress. Spiritual, not material. You can get that anywhere. But spiritual progress. So that's really why we're here today. That's why this building is here. That's why Gopalesh Guru and his team are working so hard to keep the lights on, keep the water running, keep the electricity on, just so we can all come here and discuss about Krishna. So we have a topic for the last week and this week about mind and sense control. So I have an interesting history. I was raised in the Catholic Church. And we had an instance when we were younger, we were teenage years, the rectory at the church, it was called the Our Lady of Sorrows, which is an interesting aspect of Catholicism, that they even worship the Holy Mother in her ecstasy of separation from Jesus. Our Lady of Sorrows. So that was something extra that we received when we were a child about the glories also can be not joyous, but they can be sorrowful as well. So we were there, we were in the Catholic Youth Organization, and the rectory at the church we had the first color TV in Memphis, Tennessee. So the assistant pastor used to invite us over to watch color TV. Some of the boys would be sitting on the couch there, or, it was a couple of chairs. And so I was sitting there, sitting there, kind of minding my own business. Pastor was assistant pastor. All of a sudden, he just goes over and puts his head in my lap. And I'm thinking, whoa, what's going on here? What's going on here? And then I eventually heard, he was involved with the boys. So that's an interesting problem. So then later on, I visited seminary. I was one of 8 boys, and my parents would have been very happy if one of their Catholic sons had become a priest. So I visited seminary, and I couldn't understand, how does this work? They drink, they smoke. Of course, they'll read Playboy magazines. I don't know if you've heard of Playboy magazine. They have some interesting editorials as well. And people say, no, I just buy a Playboy magazine to read the editorials. Anyway, so I'm wondering, how does this work? How does this work? Then I met the devotees. And immediately I heard about sense control. Not stopping the senses, but engaging them. So, of course, the main verse we have from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that Najayate Mriyate Vakadachin Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabuya Ajo Nitya Sashvatam Purana Nahanyate Hanyamane Sharire. For the soul, there's never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So we're not these bodies. We're spiritual personalities. We're spiritual entities. So in the 3rd chapter, Krishna explains in one of the later verses that Indriyani Paranyahur Indriyabhya Paramana Manasastu Parabuddhir Yobuddhe Vartastu Saha. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Working senses. The mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So in this material world, actually, we're pretty much concerned with just the bodily conception. And we don't really understand how the mind and the senses are controlling us. We're being controlled by the mind. And there's a very wonderful verse later in the 2nd chapter. Apuryamana achala pratishtam samudram. Samudram means an ocean. Samudram apa pravishanti yadvat. Kadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve. Nashantim. Shanti means peace. Apnoti na kamakami. Na kamakami. So it mentions that a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter the mind, just like rivers are entering into the sea. Maybe people from Durban know when it starts to rain, then the Umgani River and the other rivers, they're just flooding everywhere. If you go down to the beach, you see that river, it's just roaring into the sea. But what's happening to the ocean? What's it doing? It's taking it all. It's not going anywhere. It's not being disturbed. Just like the ocean, which is being filled, always filled, it remains still. So a person who can tolerate that incessant flow of desires, we may say, well, I'm always deciding things. Yeah, well, that's you and everybody else. We're all being affected by the desires flowing into the mind. But we tolerate. One can alone achieve peace, and not the man or the woman who tries to satisfy such desires. So we're talking about mind and sense control. So that's what yoga means. That's what yoga. We're all yogis. If you think about it, we're all yogis. We're young yogis or older yogis, but still, the idea of yoga is to link up with the Supreme. So we're bouncing around this material world. We've got no idea who we are, why we're here. But the yoga system is there to connect us to the Supreme Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So, how do we do that? How do we do that? So we have to engage. Krishna explains also later in Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Vamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Manaksastan Indriyani Prakriti Stani Karshati. That the living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they're struggling with the six senses, which include the mind. The mind. So we have five senses, and then we have another sense that's controlling or receiving all of the stimuluses from the different senses. But Krishna says we're his eternal fragmental parts. We're his. We're parts of God. Little parts. Just the example is given of the sun. The sun is shining. The sun is there. The sun and shine are the same, but in quality, not quantity. We're the same, but in minute, tiny little quantity. If the sun was here, we know we'd all be burnt to more than a crisp. We would be practically gaseous. That's all that would be left. We wouldn't have to worry about our weight plan and our going to the gym. We'd be gaseous at that time. So, there's a difference. We're little parts. Prabhupada always gives the example of the parts of the body. The parts are meant to serve the whole. Now, if the hand is thinking, there's a nice croissant, and he starts to eat it, it doesn't work. He just becomes nasty and frustrated. But if he offers the croissant to the mouth, then it goes to the stomach, it goes to the intestine, and then the energy comes to all the parts of the body. So we're little parts, we have to serve the whole. We try to enjoy separately, we just get frustrated. So the whole idea of sense control is not stopping the senses, but it's in utilizing them in Krishna's service. So in the 6th chapter, it's called Jnana Yoga. In different translations, it's referred to as another kind of yoga. But still the point is, yoga is based on controlling the mind. In the 6th verse, 6.6, you can remember 6.6, Krishna says that Bandhur means friend. Bandhur atmatmanastasya yenat maiva atmanati chitta means conquered. Anatmanastu shatrudve vartate maiva shatruva, enemy. So one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. And for one who has failed to do so, his very mind will be the greatest enemy. So this is really significant, especially in this age. People are generally well set up materially. but their minds are really having problems. People can't decide what to do. They can't decide what to do. They can't decide where to go. They have all these ADHDs and things like that. And if you look at everyone, practically, everyone has the same disease because we don't know who we are or what we should be doing unless you're a devotee. At least you know you're doing the right thing by chanting Hare Krishna, by offering foodstuffs to Krishna, by reading about Krishna. You're doing the right thing. You may not be experiencing the highest ecstasies, but you're on the right track. You're on the right track. So the idea is, how do we get from where we are to where we need to be? We need to be. Krishna says, Antakali chamameva smaran mukva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati natri atra shangsha. Is that, and he who remembers me alone at the time of death at once comes to my nature. Of this there is no doubt. So that's where we got to be. If we want to leave this material world and go back to the spiritual world. So we have to remember Krishna. We have to hear about Krishna. We have to know the difference between this material world and the spiritual one. So Krishna is the most wonderful person, believe it or not. He's the kindest person, and he loves us, even though we don't love him. I asked a devotee a question, so why would Krishna want to love me? And it was because he's not you. Because he's not you. Krishna loves everybody, everything, every ant and worm, every bird and bee. He loves everyone because we're all his children. All of his children, all his parts and parcels. So we have to have some appreciation. We have to have some appreciation. We should try to worship Krishna. Hear about Shraddha. Yeah, that's one. But the process, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam. Archanam means to worship. So you can worship. We'll all be worshiping Krishna by singing his holy name and dancing before the deity like that. Archanam. Vandanam, offering prayers. The Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita are full of prayers. Of course, you can have your own prayer. That's also nice. But the authorized prayers are here, and they all present the proper mentality of offering to Krishna. So, offering prayers, befriending, being the friend. What's being the friend? Being the friend means thick or thin. Thick or thin, person is willing to come forward and serve Krishna. And then offering everything. So Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. Remember Krishna. Prabhupada said if we're speaking and hearing about Krishna, the result of it is that we can remember Krishna. Now many of you are very fortunate already because you've been born in the Indian diaspora, let's say. So it's been part of your culture from when you were very young. So you're building on that. Krishna says in the second chapter, he says, Nehavi kramanashosti pratyavayo navidyate swapam apiyasya dharmasa trayate mahato bhayat. Bhaya and maha means the greatest fear. So on this path, there's no loss or diminution and a little advancement. A little advancement, and everyone is making a lot of advancement, except me. Because you're hearing about Krishna, hopefully I'm at least mentioning some of Krishna's words. So, making great advancement, but even a little advancement can protect one from the greatest type of fear. So we've all come from previous lifetimes to this point. And the idea is that we continue on our journey. We continue on our journey of serving Krishna, of becoming part of the society that's based on making spiritual progress. Spiritual progress. And that is controlling the senses and the mind. We use the senses for serving Krishna. There's a nice picture in the book here of the chariot. Does everyone know the picture? I can show it to you, but probably all my bookmarks will go flying out. But it shows a chariot. It shows a chariot. Got the right section. No, it's in another section. It shows a chariot. And the chariot is being pulled by horses. Horses. Now, these aren't little bitty horses. These are big, strong horses. There we go. They're big, strong horses. And each horse has on its chest, it has on its chest one of the senses. One of the senses. It has the ear on one, the eye on one. Maybe, Shana, did you find a picture? And maybe you can pass that around? Hare Krishna. So the idea, the chariot, the horses are the senses. The mind is the reins. The intelligence is the driver. The chariot is the body. And the passenger is the living entity. So,
Not in ISKCON.
oh, it's not that. Okay.
It's in the 83 one.
Okay. Sorry. All right. Thank you. So, another point, a later discussion. But, and before the chariot and the horses, there's what? There's a cliff. There's a cliff. So the horses, they're out of control without the mind and the intelligence. It just runs all over the place. So the mind is and the senses are very powerful. So we have to learn how to control them. You see in the Western movies sometimes they're trying to catch a wild horse. So then the one person throws his lasso and got the horse. But he hasn't got the horse has got him. So if another cowboy comes and puts another rope, then the horse has got the two of them. But if you throw a three one, then you need three senses, at least more than one, engaged in controlling the senses. Therefore, we have the Hare Krishna mantra. The Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So we use our tongue, we use our ears, we can use our sense of touch. And that way we're meditating on Krishna's name. And in that way, meditation means to concentrate one or more senses, two or more senses, on a particular object. So by that meditation, Chaito Darpanam Arjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvana Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitarm Vijubat. Anyway, you know the story. So we cleanse the heart, we cleanse the mind by hearing about Krishna, hearing Krishna's name, hearing Krishna's pastimes, hearing Krishna's philosophy. So if we're dirty, we're working in the garden. How many people work in the garden? Sometimes. Yeah. So even if you get dirty because you're working with dirt. So then you can always take a shower, take a bath, or just wash your hands in the sink. You can clean the body. How do you clean the mind? How do you clean the mind? So that's what the Maha Mantra is for. Man means mind, and Atra means to free. So by chanting the mantras, all of these verses are mantras, 700 mantras in the Bhagavad Gita. They're to help clean our minds of dirt. What are the dirts? Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya. Lust, anger, greed, madness or pride, illusion, and envy. Those are the dirts we're trying to remove. So, Krishna explains in the 3rd chapter, Arjuna is asking him the question, why is that a person is forced to act sinfully as if conduced by force? The person performs sinful activities as if forced. You know, people say, the devil made me do it. The devil made me do it. It's interesting, in the Islamic faith, they have Judgment Day, before you're sent to heaven or sent to hell forever. I say, no, the devil made me do it. But the devil is standing right there. And the devil says, no, I didn't make you do anything. I just suggested you could do this. So you have to take it. Not that you're going to blame it all on me. So this is the fact. So lust, anger, greed, madness, pride, illusion, envy. Those are the dirts that we need to clean from the heart. We've come to the material world because of envy of God, envy of Krishna. And that puts us in competition with every other person in this material world who's also trying to be God. And then there's various cooperations for mutual sense gratification. Mutual sense gratification. And when the sense gratification isn't, the balance of power is not there, then people quit the job. They quit the job, or they quit the marriage, or they quit this or quit that, whatever relationship they have. Then they split because it's not satisfactory. But bhakti is something different. Bhakti means devotional service. Ahaitikiya pratiyata. It means offering without any expectation of return. We offer it because we love. We love Krishna. And the Prabhupada gives the example. The closest thing to real love in the material world is the love of a mother for her child. That's the closest. And that's not really. Because she's hoping the guy will grow up, he'll be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. And he'll take care of me when I get older. Like that. Or I can brag to my friends, oh, my son's the doctor, my son's the engineer. Like that. So there's some sense gratification involved. There's some hope later. And of course, if he doesn't turn out to be the doctor or lawyer, and he just stays at home and plays video games, and it's not very satisfactory. Right. So the mind and senses, they're very powerful, and they can be used in Krishna's service. We'll be speaking, we'll be singing and dancing. Singing and dancing. It's also not just singing. The dancing has to be there too. We had a nice program last week, and last Saturday we invited some of our friends from an interfaith group, and it was a nice young African gentleman there. And we were singing, and then we went up and grabbed him, and we started, well, I wasn't swinging him, he was swinging me. But dancing. And he'd never experienced that before. Usually you're just kind of standing there and singing. But when you put your body into it, then it becomes a lot more ecstatic, really. You can ask Mataji was good at that. Yeah. So that's the thing. We have to engage. The more we engage, then the happier we feel, the more purified we become. So there's a lot of purification to go on. But when we utilize the senses in Krishna's service, then we become purified. Right. So, another verse from the sixth chapter. Yato yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tatastato niyamyaita atmanyeva vasamnayet. From whatever and wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So that's what we're trying to do. The mind is going here and going there. A lot of times, actually, we don't understand we've lost our minds. We've lost our minds. We're sitting here at 17 St. Andrews Road, corner with Tiddington Road, but our mind may be in Somerset West or Stellenbosch, or it may be in India, or it may be visiting some friends in Brackenfell. But our mind isn't here. Our bodies are, but our mind isn't. So we have to engage the mind. One of the ways you can engage the mind when you're listening is to come up with a question. You don't agree with this. I don't understand this. So we want you to ask. The doubt, it's a good thing. It's the function of the intelligence. When you don't understand something or you disagree with something, excuse me, you said, what about this? So that's why that little board goes around. And it's important. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya upadekshanti tekanam ganinas tattvadarshana. That one should inquire. Not stupid, well, why do you have that paint on your face? Well, why do you have that ponytail? We were joking with Marari this week about my secret. And I said, I don't think when Krishna comes, pulls me up, it's not enough. It's not going to be enough. You say, hey, Guru, this isn't enough Sika. And he said, well, Guru is getting tired hanging around here, so we're going to have to leave you for the next trip. I was joking, but it's like that. Anyway, so it's a process. And we're undergoing it. It's a gradual process, but we don't want it so gradual that we're not getting anywhere. If you're not moving at all, that's not good. So there should be some intelligent understanding of where I'm at and how I can get the next step. One more step. One more step. What can I do? How can I engage myself more in Krishna's service? So Prabhupada, that's one of the main ecstasies, or the symptoms of spiritual ecstasy is not shivering tears and ears. It's not wanting to waste any time. To utilize one's time fully in Krishna's service. So we're not using it fully in Krishna. Well, let's do a little bit more. Let's do a little bit more. Someone bought some nice flowers. You can buy things the temple can use, all things. You can buy some vegetables. You can buy some flowers. Utilize some of your assets for Krishna's service. Read Prabhupada's books, so important. Prabhupada had devotees around the world. They were living in the temple and they were spending all day distributing his books. And he was very happy. But whenever he met them, in France, in England, in Germany, in Sweden, in South Africa, he always asked them, but are you reading my books? And the devotee said, well, Prabhupada, we don't have time. And Prabhupada said, he turned and one devotee caught what he said under his breath. He said, then what is the use? I'm writing these books for you. They're not just for selling. So if we're not running around the streets distributing the books, fine. But at least read the ones that you have. Read them. Mataji, Shraddha Mataji, she's read CC dozens of times in Gujarati. That's fine. You can be in Hindi, you can get the book. So be absorbed, become absorbed in Krishna's pastimes. It's very simple. Krishna book. Some people are deeply philosophical, other people prefer more hearing about Krishna's pastimes. That's fine. Yena keta prakanena mana Krishna niveshayet. Whatever way you can fix your mind on Krishna, everyone should. Some people like philosophy. Some people like singing. Some people like discussing different things. Whatever way, find those devotees who like to cook for Krishna. And you can make a preparation. You can bring it and they can offer it to Krishna here. Well, you might even share the recipe. Heaven forbid. Keep it in the family. This is the family. Anyway, so mind and sense control. So we've got a couple of questions. Any brave souls that have a question that didn't make it on the clipboard? I can see them on your faces. I can see. All right, we'll have to go with these. Hare Krishna. What are our desires a reflection of? They're a reflection of what we want to do, what we want to do, what we want to enjoy. And it's a symptom of life. We stop desiring when we die. Of course, even when the mind, the subtle body still goes on after this physical body dies. But generally when you're not seeing any, we spend 7 months in a sleeping state within the womb of the mother. So then we're not really desiring much. And then when we become conscious after 7 months, then we're desiring to get the heck out of here. Like that. So desires they're a symptom of the soul. And it's said we have to take a breath for every desire. If we're imagining ourselves in a particular situation, we have to experience it. So we want to stop desiring the enjoyment of this material world. We want to start desiring to serve Krishna. There's a famous story in the Vedas. There was this one sage. He was listening, he was in an association, he was in the Bhagavatam class, and he heard this speaker say that you can get all the credit of performing devotional service just by thinking about it. Just by thinking about it. You can do it mentally. So he was a very poor sage, he had nothing. But he began thinking of performing gorgeous worship for Krishna with gold thali and katoris, and he was cooking an elaborate big feast for Krishna in his mind. Then he would offer it to Krishna like that, and he was feeling very happy like that. So one day he cooked some sweet rice. He cooked some sweet rice, but sweet rice you're supposed to serve cold. So he just finished cooked the sweet rice, and of course, you know, there's a rush. There's a rush to get things on the plate to offer to Krishna. So he was wondering, is the sweet rice cool enough to offer to Krishna? So he didn't want to taste it, so he just took the tip. You don't put your nail in it, but just the fleshy part of your finger he put in there, And it got burned. He got a 2nd-degree burn. So then he looks at his finger, and he's doing this all in meditation, and he wakes from his meditation, but his finger is actually burned. Really. So Krishna's in Vaikuntha. He's before all the goddesses of fortune, and he's laughing. Sometimes you're with somebody, and they all start chuckling. They start chuckling. Or what's so funny? So the queens and the goddesses of fortune ask, what's so funny? And Krishna just turned to his associate and said, bring that sage. So they brought him right to the spiritual world. Okay. So the point is, even if you think about it, devotional service, then you get the benefit. Get the benefit. So that's a wonderful thing. So you can desire for serving Krishna. You can desire, of course, sometimes we desire. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, the alarm goes off, and we think we've gotten up, and we got in the shower, and we're getting dressed, and all of a sudden we realize we're still in the bed. Anyway, anyway, we have to focus our desires on Krishna's service. And everyone can do it. Doesn't matter, young or old, male or female, rich or poor, smart or not so smart. It doesn't matter. It's for everyone. Okay, that's all right. The Bhagavad Gita has an entire chapter, I think chapter 6, dedicated to Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, which explains the need to and importance of controlling the mind. Should we try to use some of these techniques to help control our mind, or is chanting enough? I suppose you're talking about pranayama and asanas and things like that. So the whole process of Ashtanga Yoga, it is actually a process for self-realization, but not in this age. Not in this age. People used to live in such yuga. They lived 100,000 years. You read in the Bible where Moses and Methuselah, they lived 900 years, but that was just a couple thousand years ago. So in the previous age, in Dwapar Yuga, people would live up to 1,000 years. And Treta Yuga, they lived up to 10,000 years. But in this age, if you're lucky, you can get to 100. But, out of 100 people, maybe one makes that. So it's not suitable for this age. You can utilize the breathing and but the chanting is sufficient. Chanting is sufficient for fixing the mind, cleansing the mind, and worshiping God. So that's sufficient. It's the easiest process. It could be done in other ages, but people are thinking, well, I can do this other yoga, so why don't I do that? Why? If it's so simple, let me do something more difficult. But in every age, it's been a bona fide process of self-realization. Is that okay? Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I'm not a Maharaj. Maharaj we generally use for sannyasis. But, Prabhu, how do we remain enthusiastic in our spiritual practice when we become disappointed or discouraged in our spiritual practice? How do we remain Krishna conscious? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Wonderful, important question. Good association. Good association. Whether one is the most advanced devotee or the least advanced devotee, we still have to associate, especially with pure devotees, whenever they visit. Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, Bhakti Sarvi Maharaj, some great souls, whenever they come take advantage. And you can get their association on the internet practically every day. Srila Prabhupada's classes. Memories of Srila Prabhupada. I like listening to them. And we keep saying we heard this one memory, and this Maharaji was saying, talking about Prabhupada they toured through Gujarat and Indore, and they came back to Bombay. And this elderly man came to Prabhupada's room, he offered his obeisance and says, "Oh, Prabhupada, you can save me. You can enlighten me." And Prabhupada said, No, I can't enlighten you. I can teach you how you can enlighten yourself, but you have to do the work. You have to do the work. We're thinking the spiritual master is going to do everything for us. Even the Christians think that Jesus is going to do everything for me. No. You have to do the work. So that's the meditation. Controlling the mind, engaging the senses. So we think, when we get to the end of the road, how are we going to think of Krishna? How are we going to think of Krishna if we're not engaging our minds, at least practicing to chant His holy names 16 rounds, or as many rounds as you can. You can sing your bhajans. You can do so many things that are service to Krishna. And we can do so many things that are not service to Krishna. So let's start choosing wisely. Choosing wisely for getting materialistic attachment, materialistic engagement. The ultimate result is that's a zero. But any activity in devotional service has a permanent effect, permanent benefit. So if we get disappointed, the fact that we realize that we are disappointed or disturbed because we're not making any progress, then we have to pray, we have to beg. Anybody been out on the street at one of the traffic lights with a cup begging? Anybody ever done that? You have to beg. We don't think we need to beg. But we need to beg. We need to beg Krishna. We need to beg the spiritual master. We need to beg them for their mercy, that we can make progress. Because we don't have the strength. We don't have it. We do our best. But when we get to a point where we can't do any more, we got to start praying. We got to start begging. We should learn how to do that. Maharaji was singing so nicely. And the Nectar of Devotion says that the perfection of devotional service can be experienced by shedding tears. Shedding tears. So, we've got volumes and volumes of books. We have so many services to do. But within our hearts, that's what Krishna wants to see. In our heart. So we have to pray. We have to beg. When we get to that point where we're so disappointed and disturbed, there's a very nice verse. Shat Krishna Mama Charitari Sukirtananu Smritjo Kramena Manasi Niyoja Tishtan Vrije Anukami. No, I'm mixing up. Anyway. The verse says, devotional service is so powerful that if you hear about it, if you just hear it, if you accept it, just like we're saying things, and some things you accept and some things, I don't agree with that. But if you accept devotional service, you hear about it, you perform it. or if you even appreciate the devotional service of somebody else, then you can at once become cleansed. And it talks about the person who can become cleansed. It says it's the person who hates all the demigods and all living entities. I don't know if you had one of those days when you get up in the morning and it's a bad day. You don't want to talk to anybody. You wish everybody would go away, disappear, go to another planet. But if we can just appreciate the service that someone else does, even we don't do it, but if we can just appreciate the devotees who are serving so nicely, cooking the feast, worshiping the deities, chanting bhajans and prayers, giving classes, giving wonderful classes. We can just appreciate them, then we can become purified. So if we get to that point where we're disappointed and disturbed, then we have to associate with others. And that's why even so-called advanced devotees, they're enthused when they meet a new devotee that has simple sincerity. So you can learn. In the Bhagavatam, there's one chapter in the 11th canto, there's one devotee. And this king saw this devotee and says, wow, you really have lots of spiritual advancement. Who's your guru? He said, oh, well, I've got 26 gurus. I've got 26 gurus. So he had the sun, the moon, the air, the trees, the pigeon, the prostitute. Oh, the thing is, if we're humble, then we can learn from anyone and anything, any situation. The problem is we think we know everything. So Trinadapi Sanichena, Dvarapi Sadishnuna, Amanina Madadena, Kirtaniya Sadhari. We have to be humble. We have to be humble. We have to be willing to offer all respects to others and expect none for ourselves. We get up in the morning and we think, well, the flowers should be falling from the heavens and there should be some orchestra playing to welcome me to consciousness. No, ain't gonna happen. So we're proud. Every one of us in our own little way, we're proud of our penny. So we have to become humble. And how do we do that? We do that in the association of devotees. We were talking about the mind, the senses being superior to dull matter, the mind being superior to the senses, the intelligence being superior to the mind, and he, the soul, being superior to the intelligence. But there's something that's superior to the intelligence, and that's the ego. The ego. So we don't like to experience it. We don't like to say it. I'll stop in just a moment, Mother. But yeah, you can experience when you're disappointed. The job doesn't come through. When your football team loses. Oh, terrible, terrible. South Africa, if the Springboks lose, then the whole country's in the blues for a few days. Right? So that's ego. So that's not who we are. There's a false ego, and there's the real ego. The real ego is I'm Krishna's servant. And the false ego is all this other stuff. So yes. No, there's one more. You mentioned Lord Krishna telling Arjuna that his behavior wasn't suited to with knowledge. Lord Krishna told Arjuna to actions, not to fear that a little progress in devotional service greatest accomplishment. Who did Arjuna go still? why did Arjuna still go to hell? Oh, well, that's way up there. That's explained in the Mahabharata. But that's really not important for us at our stage. And he just went to hell for a brief moment. Because he was proud. He was proud of being the greatest fighter in the world. So because of that pride, even though he used that pride and his ability in serving Krishna, he still got some sense gratification from it. And he had to suffer somewhat for that. But it was fairly inconsequential, especially when we're talking about the Pandavas and their great situation of serving Krishna. And even the great sages went to great misfortune. So there's always something. There's always room for improvement. Never think that we've accomplished everything. There's so much, even where we are, there's so much we need to do. So we're going to stop because we're really running out of time. Mother Kuna Manjari is going to curse me. Shiva Prabhupada, Shri Shri Nitai, Maya Pachantra.
Praise me, Divine Lord.